live, and let's just make sure this is going through to the LinkedIn live page. So if you are listening already, this is the awkward bit where I have to fill some time while we wait for it to hit the page. And let's just make sure that's coming through, because it doesn't seem to be. So this is the extra awkward bit where I start to try and scramble. Let's see. I mean, if anyone is seeing this live anywhere, then please do comment, because that makes it much easier to figure out where the problem is. Let's see. Okay, are we on LinkedIn? Yes, we are on LinkedIn Live. Okay, we're back. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. You're all very welcome. We are now live on LinkedIn, and I think maybe somewhere else. So you should be able to see us there. How is everyone? My name is Simon Scriver. I'm one of the co-founders of Fundraising Everywhere, and this is the Fundraising Everywhere podcast, recorded live. Sometimes we record these live on LinkedIn, especially if we just want to have a little chat. And I will say, people are very welcome to join in today. I really want to hear other people's thoughts as we get into this. Whether you were at IFC or you were not at IFC, I think it's just, I think we all benefit every time we come together to really chat about anything fundraising and learn from each other. And not many people know this, but myself and Nikki, when we set up Fundraising Everywhere, one of the very early days was at an IFC. And that was actually the last IFC I was at, was even before Fundraising Everywhere. And it's incredible to think how much has happened in that time. But we loved IFC, and I have so much love for IFC as a speaker. I used to be the Irish ambassador. I've gotten so much in my career out of it. But thinking back, I think back to the first IFC I went to as an attendee, and honestly, I used to like hide in my room in between sessions and stuff like that, because it's so overwhelmingly scary sometimes, especially as a junior person, and trying to network at the best of times is good, but when you're in the middle of like the forest in Holland, and all these people feel so senior to you and so far advanced. But it really kind of spurred me on, and I eventually spoke at IFC, and it was really career changing for me. And I've just been such a big fan of everyone behind IFC. If you ever talk to any of them one-to-one, they are just so driven and so on the same page as I think a lot of us. And so I've gotten so much out of IFC. But one of the things from Fundraising Everywhere that me and Nikki, we're always believed in or noticed, was that when you go to conferences like this, as much as I love them, 99.9% of people aren't in the room. And sometimes it's kind of, those are the most important people, the people who are just coming in to the profession and need to be, need that guidance early on, or the people who have been in the profession way too long and are, gatekeeping and holding on to things, and they are suddenly, not in the room and not part of these conversations of a changing time. And that became really clear to me in some sessions. I was in a great session about climate change, but I was in a great session about community-centric fundraising. And I have to, with all due respect to the speaker, it was not well attended. And the speaker, Michelle, who was so lovely and so smart, but she had been saying that in the States, and I've seen this, people can't fit in the room to hear about community-centric fundraising. And I thought that was really interesting about why that perhaps was not translating across to Europe, or I don't know, anywhere. But I mean, let's stop listening to me go on, because we've got some really interesting people here. I kind of put out not an open invitation, but I wanted to hear from some voices that I know frequent IFC, or have had a big part of IFC. And so the first person I'm actually going to bring on is Damien Chapman, because I mean, we definitely need another white man on screen, don't we? But the reason I'm asking Damien first is because, Damien, you've kind of been involved with the IFC and a lot of conferences, IOF. You seem to be like a cog in so many different things in the background. Tell me, is IFC special for you, or what's your connection to IFC?
So it's really special to me, but interestingly, I've never been to it as a delegate. So you mentioned that you've attended IFC a couple of times. I've been now to, so including the online ones we had to do during the pandemic, this was my 5th consecutive, but I've never not been part of the people putting it on together in one form or another. So I went as a session leader, wearing one of the lurid t-shirts that were bright orange that year, and were definitely form figure hugging, I'll be honest.
A session leader is like the volunteer in the room,
yeah,
who holds up the sign, who guides people. Basically, they're all volunteers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're the conduit between the speakers who are trying to get their room sorted and all of that going on. I see Sarah's watching on LinkedIn Live. Sarah and I were in the same year of session leaders back in 2019, I think it was. And yeah, so I've carried on ever since because it is special. It's got a reputation of being a spiritual home for fundraisers. I'm not sure whether I necessarily prescribe into the full level of belief on that, but what it does do is bring a very different perspective. So you mentioned it's two white men who happen to be on screen talking at the moment. IFC used to be, but it started to become a much more plural and more global South growing international meeting of fundraising professionals, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing more of. And I learned so much at IFC. I've met some very special people who are doing a similar job to me, but in different contexts, different environments, different continents, and just hearing, sharing, learning, reflecting, and taking that back into what I do has been what makes it very special to me.
It's that spiritual home. I mean, yeah, like I think a lot of people now hate that idea of there's like, you know, this higher thing. But it's funny. I mean, I was talking to a couple of people who were there for the first time, and they did say like the atmosphere compared to conferences is very different because we were sitting somewhere and there was like shrubs coming down. There was like a nice nature walk and things like that. And I just thought there was a really lovely vibe. And I love that you're name checking people as you're doing this, like that you first met Sarah and stuff like that. Because I think that's a huge part of it, isn't it? Is the connections. And I probably know you through IFC, or, you know, how we've gotten to know each other as a bit of IFC crossover. And it did feel like a lot of familiar faces, but it also felt like everyone was there wanting to connect. It's like, I want to network. I'm not just here to kind of come in and parachute out. It's like, I want to actually connect. Do you go there consciously to meet people, or can you just not avoid it?
I think there is a certain element of that, but I will always remember there was a conversation that was had between two people who were sat next to me in the foyer of the hotel reception, and one was saying to the other, "I really want to talk to this person, but I don't know. I don't know them. I don't feel as though I can approach them, and I'm slightly scared too." And the other person said, "Well, do you want me to introduce you?"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
at that point, it was like, no. And it was, no, it's not a problem. Everybody here is a fundraiser. Everybody here has been in exactly a similar position and have been to a first time one before. Let's go have a chat. And up they went, and it was, "Hi, so and so. This is so and so. They'd really like to talk to you." And they turned around, had a conversation for about 20 minutes, and I just sat and observed it. And for me, that's one of the things. It ties into Martha's point. There is an element of bringing people who understand and have a shared experience of what it's like being a fundraiser in a non-fundraiser's world, but being in the same confined space, usually indoors, and not getting enough outside air for 5 days.
It's very,
just getting there and saying, "I'd like to talk," and people being willing and open to do it. So yeah, that's what I like about it. It is fundraising people meeting together and not being afraid to talk to somebody new.
yeah, it's very nice. And I feel like it all kind of converges for that moment, and then everyone goes off. And very much like what we're trying to do at fundraising everywhere and with things like this is keep that conversation going in between. And so I really appreciate you making the time to come on. Damien, do you know Elspeth? I'm going to bring on Elspeth. And
I do.
Sabrina's waiting. I'll bring on in a second. But anyone else who maybe wants to come in, especially underrepresented voices and people, you know, who are maybe afraid to kind of share opinion, I promise I will be nice and help you share your opinion. So please do DM me on LinkedIn if you want to chat. How do you two know each other? From IFC?
IFC, yeah, last week.
Couldn't have planned that better. And Elspeth, you are, I mean, I always call you the first lady of face-to-face fundraising, but actually you're more of an individual giving all-rounder. But I don't think you really go to sessions at this, do you? Do you just go to meet Damien and other people like that? Or what are you getting from it?
No, both. I actually went to a lot of sessions, and I have to say, it's like, for me, the IOC is like everything that Damien just said. So hi, Damien, nice to see you again.
It's been so long.
I know, I missed you already. I think the IFC is, out of all events, is the place to be for a fundraiser, but also for if you need new contacts, if you want new ideas, if you want to be challenged on your old ideas. But for, yeah, it's the meeting people that makes it really. I really feel that the IFC is back. Like over the last few years, it still felt like we're not back at pre-COVID levels. Like the first couple of years, especially, it was very quiet. Not many people were there. A lot of people still had travel restrictions. And I think this year was the first year where it was full capacity again. It was busy. People were buzzing. Everybody from every corner of the world. It's not like some parts of the world were still missing like over the past couple of years. But it was amazing. I feel like the sessions have become better, as in they've become, I don't want to say more senior, but they've become more quality, I think. It's like sometimes over the past, many years back, I would go to a session and come out. I think, oh, I could have done that. But now I went to a whole variety of sessions. I saw Josh on the list here. I went to his session about AI for good. I went to sessions about legacies. I went to the Wow Your Donor sessions. I went to something social media. I went to a whole range of different sessions. And I think every single one of them, I walked out and I thought, I've learned something. I've learned something I didn't know yet, and I'm going to implement this in my work. And that for me, like to have that from pretty much all sessions was amazing. But on top of that, it's like, I love networking when it's good people to talk to. Like we're all sometimes you go to a conference and people are like what you were just saying, like scared to talk, or they don't want to talk, or they're very, like not open to it. Well, at the IOC, you have a room full of, I don't know, what is it, 1,000, 1,500 people that you can talk to, 999 of them if it's 1,000 of them. And everybody will be open to talk to you. And especially in, my situation at the moment, so many people have literally grabbed me and said, like, you need to speak to so-and-so. I'm going to introduce you. Or do you know so-and-so yet? Let's talk together. And I think that's the strength of the IOC. Like people are not scared to meet, not scared to talk. Thank you, Josh. But yeah, people are not scared to talk, and people are really open to meet you and for you to meet them. So I think that's massive at the IFC, more than any other event.
Yeah. So open. And I want to talk about meeting people soon, but Damien, I don't want to keep you too long. Tell me your top learning, or what are you bringing back to your team? Because I think there's like potential there, because I know a lot of nonprofits do this where they send, because God forbid we should send more than one person on training. They send one person on training, and then that person has to come back and present, or like tell everyone what we learn, and like good charity squeeze every learning out of every penny we can. Damien, what would you bring back to your team from this one, and what would you do differently with your team after IFC?
So there was one thing specifically that happened in one of the sessions where we were replaying just how we were dealing with problems, and they presented a different model of doing it to many people in the room. And it was you basically get together, you identify the problem, you verbalize the problem, you talk around it, you get people to ask you questions about it, they reflect on it, and then they give you their thoughts back in order to try and provoke you to think. And it reminded me that I'm in a group with about 4 other fundraisers, and we do this all already ourselves. But it hadn't clocked to me that I could actually be doing it with my team. And the idea of actually bringing something that I've been doing for years, about 3.5 years now, with a group of other fundraisers, and bring it into my organization, it was a real light bulb moment for me about how we can start tackling some of the specific problems that my organization are trying to tackle, but using a technique that I already know very well from other places, just using it in a different way. The idea that you can repurpose and reorganize and readjust how you're doing things to suit a different situation, it hadn't really clicked to me. And yet when you look at it objectively, you think, well, surely you would have thought of that. And you just get so blinkered into your way of doing things. Sometimes you don't see the whole board or the whole perspective. The opportunity to just get that brought out to me was really quite special. But I've already got 2 members of staff who've said, yeah, I definitely want to go next year. I want to be part of it. And interesting, one of them wants to be a session leader because they, like me, like to be involved in doing stuff. Because to your point, Simon, at the end of a session, just going and hiding in your bedroom because you've already done too many people.
Yeah.
That's it, came out wrong. The whole idea of finding different ways to be able to be part of the event and the activity to structure it is something that they really think would work for them. So yeah, hopefully there'll be 3, 4, 5 of us from Money Advice Trust.
I love that. I love that. Honestly, like one of the reasons I became a speaker at conferences is because I was too anxious to network. And when you become a speaker, people approach you. But I'm learning over time, you know, like conferences like IFC and at fundraising everywhere, we really try and give everyone the microphone, you know, like give that equity. I think you do realize that everyone is open and everyone is welcome into that. And that's where the learnings happen. And Damien, your point about just even reframing it, you know, it gives you a different view. And I feel like I've been in my apartment for 7 years, you know, and IFC, I really just like sparked all this stuff in my brain that I kind of had maybe been dormant for a while. So that was really exciting. But Damien, it's so lovely to see you. I'm going to get rid of you because we've hit our Damien capacity. I've had so much of you over the last couple of weeks. But I thank you for everything, Damien. You really looked after me at IFC. I didn't miss that. So thank you. Elspeth, I'm going to bring on Sabrina Nixon. Do you know Sabrina? Hello.
I'm not sure. I don't think so. Oh, yes. I think Sabrina, were you in the session about Wow Your Donors?
Yes, I was. Yes,
that was you. Yes,
it's great that you joined. Thank you.
I did. Yeah, it was good.
Sabrina is a new face to me, and this is why I especially want to talk to or brought on Sabrina at this point, because that idea of meeting people the first time. Now, you'd been to IFC before, hadn't you?
No, this was your first time.
That was your. I thought that was your second IFC, so that shows how well I was listening when we met. But so that was. Tell me, as a first timer, what did you think of IFC?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to be honest and say that IFC really wasn't on my radar at all until Rob mentioned the opportunity to speak alongside him. I would say that it was very daunting initially, being invited to essentially an international forum and sharing lessons, despite obviously having worked in fundraising for many moons. It's a room full of your peers, which is both amazing and equally terrifying. But hearing more about it and doing some more research about it as a forum and as a congress, as a sort of a gathering of people who essentially do the same job, but in such different contexts around the world, it was just so inspiring and exciting to be part of that. And an absolute honor to be sharing some expertise to that group. But then also, I absolutely love the opportunity to network in person. Post-pandemic, those opportunities are few and far between.
You mentioned that you like networking, and I said I don't think that's true because nobody likes networking. But you genuinely like that bit of IFC, like approaching it. What's your tactic as a first timer at an overwhelming IFC? How were you approaching people? How would you advise people like me to approach people?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I would say, first and foremost, don't put undue pressure on yourself. When you go to events like this, I think you mentioned, Simon, about that sort of the weight and responsibility of an organization on your shoulders, or if you funded it yourself, that pressure to sort of make the most out of that moment. And I think actually just allowing yourself to be present and go with the flow a bit more. I think the IFC really does create those opportunities quite organically. So, for example, when you're joining a session, you'll be sat next to people. Like, I'd encourage you not to sort of keep in a group, like go and sort of plonk yourself down next to a different group of people you've never met before. And then, organically, you just spark up those conversations with people very willing to chat about, who they are, what they do, why they're in that room. And the very fact that you've both chosen that same session already gives you common ground. So either before the session, if you're brave, or after the session, even better, because albeit some people are rushing off to go to the next one, but I would say don't put that pressure on yourself to like hurry to the agenda, go and get to the seats. It's about being in the moment and sharing those sort of insights that you might have gathered there and then with the people sat next to you. And I think that was the biggest sort of networking hack I would share.
That's good. So tell me, is there something you would do differently going back to Dog's Trust? And I did just see a dog on screen, but I don't think it was your screen. I think
it was my cat.
Your cat. Okay, so this is confusing. Sabrina, what would you do differently in Dog's Trust after IFC? Is it still sinking in, or is there a clear tweak?
Yeah, there were a couple of things that I took away from IFC. Number one, really on this theme of networking, it's just trying to get out more. It's very easy to be sat here at your desk and sort of beavering away. But I do think there's a piece about, post IFC, I'm going to be putting in coffee catch-ups, watch this space, Simon. But yeah, just sort of reaching out to people I've connected with and, building those relationships a bit more and actually hearing a bit more different perspectives. So yeah, just taking that back to the team, saying you don't need to have just gone to a conference for that. Many of us will have people that we could introduce to one another that will benefit our work, just sharing and being generous with those networks and encouraging more face-to-face catch-ups. but then also more actually lessons that I've learned. The Bernard Ross session, he delivered an amazing session on the donor decision lab.
Great?
Oh my goodness. And if you haven't heard of Bernard Ross, definitely go and check him out. Published author, incredible fundraiser hack, essentially. And amazing.
Sorry to interrupt, but did he wag his finger at anyone? Was Bernard like, and he gets in your face and he gets all
I think he did a few times, didn't he?
I love it. I love
it.
He told
a few people off a few times as well.
Yeah.
Quite a few times.
For having a Henry Hoover, which it out of context sounds a bit strange, but
hold on.
Oh no, Simon.
I've got my mini
oh well, he would have wagged his finger at you. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm not interested. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, Sabrina. Tell me what Bernard Ross taught you.
No, it's great. So essentially, I think we as fundraisers are very aware that, psychology comes into a lot of our work. It's definitely an art. It's also a science. So he was talking about the ways that we can use psychology to our advantage. So my dog is now trying to barge into the room, so you will see a tail. He gave a really compelling example of penguins, which is out of context a bit bizarre, but this idea that one half of the room were given sort of this question saying, true or false, there are 100,000 penguins in the Antarctic, and they had to sort of write whether it's true or false, and then if they thought it was false, how many penguins they really thought were in the Antarctic. And then the other side of the room were also asked that same question, but instead of 100,000, it was 10 million. And then again, people writing what they thought. And the lesson from that was, depending on the benchmark number, people guessed quite close to that number. So as fundraisers, when you're going out there and you're putting out a pitch together and you're making an ask, not underselling yourself, because that number that you put out there is going to be where people benchmark, especially if they don't have a strong frame of reference. So it's not to say, you're going to be charging £10 million for every partnership proposal. That's unrealistic. But it's about making sure that you're nudging people in the right way. And I think that is the biggest lesson. And I'm going to be taking the penguin exercise back to my team for sure.
It's so interesting, that behavioral science stuff. And I remember seeing, I think, Professor Jen Shang at IFC, and just like the subtlest changes of words and the subtlest anchoring in numbers, on phone calls and mailings and things. I love all that stuff. I can't get enough of that behavioral science thing. Come here. We're running out of time, but I want to flag the elephant in the room, which Michelle has rightly pointed out. Feel very conflicted. I love attending, presenting, always FOMO of missing out. I totally agree. But they don't pay speakers or travel costs, and it is expensive to get there. That's it. And it's a difficult one for me because I love IFC and I don't want to be seen to like slating them. But everyone knows our stance as fundraising everywhere. Like, we pay speakers, and the reason we were set up is because most people can't travel. So I don't know. I mean, my opinion is there's a place for IFC. No one's forcing them to go. Whenever I talk to people, they always get so much out of it. And it's a decision, that charities have to decide whether it's worth to send or not. Charities are notoriously poor at investing at training and learning and development, as our fundraising everywhere's recent research has shown. But Elspeth, tell me this and tell me no more. Is it worth it for you? Would you pay it out of your own pocket? How much would you pressure your manager to send you? Like, these conferences, are they worth it for you?
They are, but I think I'm also in a lucky position that I'm in Europe. So a lot of these conferences are in Europe. So if you're a speaker from Australia or, I don't know, New Zealand, Canada, or the US compared to, going from Spain, where I live, to Holland, which is my home base, or where I'm from. So I think the difference between the ticket price is a lot. So yes, I would say for me, it's definitely worth it. And I've spoken on your event, Simon. I've spoken on the online events for the Resource Alliance. I've spoken at the IFC itself. It's definitely worth it because you get so much back from it. But I can totally see the other side of it, where it's a lot of money if you come from far away. And to internally pitch that, and, for an NGO to not just send you, but also the rest of the team, maybe, that's a lot of money. And, if I would have been based in Australia, the answer would have been no, you're not going. Even if I was speaking, no way, no matter what you get from it, it would have been a no. So I think it's fair to say that if people come from that far, that we need to look into, are we paying speakers and what are we paying them? Or are we, I don't know, whatever system we put in place, I think it's only fair.
I will flag, like on the IFC, when you buy their standard ticket, you get accommodation options. you get food, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner is provided. So there are, like, you know, sometimes I think they're kind of misrepresented. But the reality is, it is expensive to put these things on even before the speakers. So I can see why they do it. And the reason I always defend IFC, I think, because they have a great team who consciously, you can see, are trying. And every year there's improvement. You know, lots of people said there was improvements in safeguarding, making really conscious efforts, conscious efforts in terms of who they're funding to get there and how they help people to get there. And to be honest, I don't see some other organizations making that effort, you know. So that's why I kind of defend IFC on this. And I guess it's up to them. Sabrina, as a first timer and someone who, by the sounds of it, wants to go back again, is it worth the price for you?
It's an interesting question, actually, because no, like many people, I looked at the price and sort of balked. It was very expensive. And, you know, before working at Dogs Trust, I actually was working in a much smaller charity, and there's absolutely no way that the learning and development budget would have stretched to funding that. So it would have been a sort of economic decision that I would have had to make for myself. Yes, it's an interesting point. I think it really is very personal. And I think if the quality of sessions were like they were this year, I think it is absolutely worth its weight in gold. And, you know, I've just got this year to benchmark against. But at the same time, I think that there is a point about, you know, are there different, more accessible options that could be put forward to people? Are there like satellite events, for instance, that could be put on? You know, there's some amazing, well, the online streaming, you know, that doesn't allow for networking. But for example, that is a cheaper and more affordable option if you just want to access the sessions. But I think for me, there is this piece that, and I know that IFC have created this global community now off the back of IFC. So I'd be interested to see where that goes. It might be that there's perhaps more accessible, more affordable, perhaps regional opportunities that they could do, which, you know, remove that massive cost for people traveling sort of halfway across the world, and perhaps a little bit more locally. But then it doesn't have that global benefit. So it's pros and cons, really.
It is, and no one seems to have gotten it completely right, you know. So I don't think there is an easy solution. But you know, I hope, like I think I'm committed to going to IFC next year. For me, it's worthwhile. You know, I would love to explore other ways that we can help people get there. And I'm saying, for the record, if I get hit by a bus today, honestly, set up like a bursary where you send one person every year to IFC for me. That's all I ask people. And then loads of it into Fundraising Everett. Obviously, we donate loads into Fundraising Everett and get free tickets and stuff. But yeah, I think, like, as you said, Sabrina, it's kind of a very personal decision. It's based on circumstances. But as other people have pointed out, there's lots of opportunities in terms of speaking, in terms of session leading, in terms of getting sponsors involved. I will remind people, we have the Mandy Fund, you know, in memory of Mandy from our team. You can apply for funding for training. It doesn't have to be a Fundraising Everywhere thing, although obviously we think we provide great training. But you can use that against things like IFC if you're successful. And if anyone wants to talk about supporting that fund to help more people attend training, then obviously we're all ears. But I'm going to have to wrap up. And Elspeth, Sabrina, I'm so glad you made the time, because I mean, it's not a very exciting invitation to come and talk to me about a conference that happened last week. But have you got any final words to say? What are you working on that people should be checking out? Elspeth, where do people find you, and why should they reach out to you?
Well, I'm at Save the Children, but you can most easily find me on LinkedIn. And why they should reach out to me, because I am a IG fundraiser with a strong face-to-face background, and I love chatting to people and helping people further in the industry. And yeah, I think it's like I said, I think the IFC is a brilliant event, whether they pay for their speakers or not. And like Sabrina was saying, I think that's their personal choice. I think they do offer a lot, and for me, I get so much from it every year I go, and I think that is the biggest strength. So if you don't find me at IFC, which you won't for another year at least, find me on LinkedIn. I'm there. I'm happy to chat to anyone if you want to know more about the IFC from last week or about what I do. Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. And Sabrina, I hope you'll connect with Elspeth if you're not already connected. That's my goal from today, is to introduce you. Sabrina, any final words? Where do people find you?
Yeah, likewise with Elspeth, please do link in with me. I would love to sort of connect with other people who are passionate fundraisers, My specialism is very much more in the high value giving space, but specifically corporate partnerships. So if you missed IFC and you're intrigued about what Wow Your Donors was all about, I'm very happy to share some nuggets of intel. Transformational corporate partnerships are what sort of really excite me. So if you have been working on some amazing partnerships, please do connect me. I'd love to hear about them. I also do quite a lot of mentoring in my spare time as well. So if you're an early stage fundraiser and you're looking specifically to specialize in corporate partnerships, really happy to connect and hear your story and see if I can help as well.
I didn't know that. Is that like a paid service that you do, or is that something you just do for fun?
No, it's just for fun. Yeah, I've been part of various different networks. So the Charity Works mentoring scheme I'm part of. And then I also was paired with a wonderful fundraiser through the Red Cross mentoring scheme when I worked there. So it's just been more through informal networks. But no, I do love to hear and help early stage fundraisers get their kind of confidence up and get ready and raring to go.
Oh, I love this. I know I'm trying to hatch a secret project with Sabrina, but that sounds like another thing we need to talk about. That mentoring, it sounds amazing. Okay, well, thank you both. Go enjoy the rest of your day, and very nice to see you, and thank you for your time.
Lovely to see you all.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much for all the comments, everyone. It's nice to reconnect with those of you who are at IFC and who are not at IFC. Remember, at Fundraising Everywhere, we're there all year round, and if you want to dip into the community, we love these in-person conferences, but we also run our own in-person little events, picnics. We've got something coming up in Edinburgh soon, a nice little networking event with some learnings. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say the speaker yet, so I won't say it, but we'll post it in the chat if it's official. We have some other in-person things around Manchester, London. We often have some, but remember, our virtual community is there all the time. So do please check out Fundraising Everywhere membership. It's a small amount. It's very cost effective, annual or monthly amount, either from your organization or yourself. And you get access to all of our online conferences, all of our virtual content, including our on-demand library, plus our private members only stuff. And then these little extras that we put on all the time to try and support our members. And remember, as always, our content is there for the members. We're dictated by what you guys want to see. So things like this, if you found this useful, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know. I would love to get some of the Fundraising Everywhere members. If you're at any of the conferences, I would love to pick your brains afterwards, and we can share it with everyone what you got from that, until charities start properly investing in learning and development. Am I right? But until that point, you can download our research paper, which we've just released on learning on research and development. You'll find that on the Fundraising Everywhere website, or there'll be links floating around. If you follow us on social, you'll see it there. And then finally, before I do shut up, remember, as a member, you get access to all of our future conferences that are coming up. You're already registered, but you can also kind of pay as you go if you would prefer that. We've got our Trusts and Major Donors conference coming up on December 12th. This is the next big one. Before that, we have Fundraising Tech as well. We've got more details coming up about that soon, but do check out all the stuff we're doing over the next couple of months around trusts and major donors. This seems to be the hot topic at the moment. And obviously we do our annual conference just in time. But thank you all. Thank you all for joining me. And thank you all for those tuning in. And thank you to Kelvin and the gang at IFC. Honestly, the volunteers, the team, the staff, all of them, the board. I spoke to so many Resource Alliance people, and they had just worked their little tushes off to get this done. And I really enjoyed it. Genuinely my second favorite IFC ever. And I got so much out of it. I'm so excited for the next year. I'm so excited for what we're all going to do together as part of the sector. And I hope to see you at IFC next year. But before then, I hope to see you at a Fundraising Everywhere event. And we'll be back next week for one of these little chats as well. Take care, everyone. Nice to see you. Have a good day. And we will see you soon.
Fundraising Everywhere.
Fundraising Everywhere.
Fundraising Everywhere.
Fundraising Everywhere.
Fundraising Everywhere. You need to add me in there.